Some statistics show that 8 out of 10 people believe in angels. Many people believe that angels walk among us today, and we don't even know it as they're disguised as humans. But others believe they have seen angels in their true forms. These angels bring peace and comfort to those who see them, and some people claim to have been saved by angels. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 mysterious and intriguing angel encounters. The man and the truck. Bruce Van Natter was a mechanic who especially loved big trucks. In November 16, 2006, while working an hour away from home, he was fixing a Peterbilt logging truck. But before he left that day, the driver asked if he could help with another problem he was having with the truck. Bruce slid underneath the truck with the axle in the air across his chest, but the truck fell and landed on him, nearly crushing him. He refused to move him because his back was broken. He knew that it would cause too much pain. Not knowing what else to do, Bruce prayed for God to save him. Immediately, all the pain that he felt disappeared. He felt his spirit leave his body, and it floated to the ceiling so he was able to see everything happening from above. While the trucker knelt over him apologizing, Bruce saw 2 angels at his sides. They were taller than the trucker and didn't have any wings. Instead, they just had overly broad shoulders. A bright light radiated around them all. They reached out and touched Bruce, and he felt a peace that he couldn't explain. He realized he had to choose whether he would live or lose his life. He heard different voices in his head, fighting over which he should choose, but he chose to live. At that moment, he felt his spirit return to his body. Bruce was flown to the hospital, but the doctors were certain he wouldn't survive much longer. His ribs were broken, both his pancreas and spleen were crushed, and many of his major arteries had been severed. Bruce knew that they were wrong, because the angels were still there helping him. He stayed in the hospital for over 2 months, undergoing several operations. He had 75% of his small intestines removed because they'd been crushed. He lost 125 pounds because he couldn't eat, and he needed assistance for almost everything he did. A visitor Bruce had only met once came to pray with him 2 days in a row. Eventually, he was able to eat again and gained all the weight back. He began to heal better than he had been, and soon was completely healthy again. Everyone knew he should have passed away, but he believed God sent the angels that day to save his life. He's since written a book about his experience and now travels around telling people about spiritual healing. The Thames Angel. The Great Fire of London started on September 2, 1666. The Thomas Fariner's bakery was found on fire around 1 in the morning by a family servant. The flames were out of control, and while the family were able to get to safety, the servant didn't make it out. The fire spread quickly across the city, even as everyone worked together to put it out. The means of firefighting at the time simply weren't enough to stop the fire before it spread around the whole city. Even King Charles II tried to help. The fire didn't stop until September 6th, after the east wind had finally dropped and the Tower of London garrison created fire breaks with gunpowder. The devastation caused by the Great Fire was more than they could have prepared for. Though 6 loss of lives were recorded, it believed there must have been many more. The 6 people were buried at Jubilee Gardens, and the king himself attended their funerals. While people were working to rebuild the city and get their lives back to normal, many claim to have seen a winged figure floating above the River Thames and in the surrounding areas. There are 6 recorded sightings of this figure from that time, and people believed it was an angel bringing them hope. They believed the angel was there to remind them that even though they'd gone through such a large tragedy, God still loved them and would protect them. Those who saw the angel felt an unexplainable reassurance and a sense of comfort that didn't go away. Throughout the years, hundreds of people claimed to have seen this angel. Men building the Victoria Embankment along the River Thames saw it several times in 1865. It was seen many times during both World Wars, giving hope to those who saw it. In 2006, while driving to meet a friend, a woman saw the angel and immediately felt comfort and peace. She took a picture on her phone, even though she assumed the quality would be poor. However, after uploading it and resizing it on her computer, she was able to see the distinct outline of an angel. Some people believe that angels only appear to people who are very blessed and have unique spiritual qualities, but many others still look for a scientific explanation. People have suggested that boat fumes may create a mirage. Some have said cameras are catching reflections. Others have blamed pollution and the weather. Yet no one can explain why the figure always appears the same way every time. Garabandal apparitions on June 18, 1961, in a small village in Spain called Garabandal. 4 girls were playing near the edge of the town. They heard something loud, like thunder, and saw the Archangel Michael come down. He told them that on July 2nd that the Virgin Mary would appear to them as Our Lady of Mount Carmel. The news spread throughout the region quickly. By July 2nd, the whole town was crowded by people from all social classes, careers, and even from out of town. That evening, the girls went back to the place where the angel first appeared. They saw Our Lady holding the baby Jesus, along with the 2 angels. She was wearing a white robe and a crown of stars, was tall, with dark hair and a long face. She appeared to be 18 years old. The girls said there's no voice on earth like hers. They talked to her with ease, telling her about tasks they had to get done and plans they'd made for later on. She told the girls to treat her like children talking to their mother. She said they could tell her anything. In 1961 and 1962, she would appear to the girls many times every week. Sometimes she would appear to all 4 at once, and other times only to 1, 2, or 3 of them. She didn't always appear at the same time. Sometimes it would be early and other times it would be at night. Even when it was late, the girls would still get up early in the morning and carry out their chores without any sign of exhaustion from being up late. Every time she appeared, the girls fell into bliss. They would instantly fall to their knees, though they never had any cuts or bruises. Their facial expressions changed, and they were said to look exceptionally beautiful at the time. No one could ever accurately describe the change of their expressions during these times. The girls were completely absorbed by the vision, were never aware of anything going on around them. People would try to distract them with pricks, burns, and strong lightning, but nothing ever worked. Even in the brightest light, their eyes remained wide open and full of joy. Soon they began walking and even running during these visions. Our Lady would guide them so they were able to avoid obstacles and not get hurt. They would go through the whole village, even into others' homes, at all hours. They would run at such great speeds that they would be able to run at such up steep mountainsides that no one could follow them. Sometimes they even ran backwards. One day the Archangel Michael told one of the girls that the invisible communion he'd been giving her would become visible on her tongue. Early on July 19, 1962, she fell into euphoria and left her house. She fell to her knees in the middle of a street nearby. People crowded around her as she held out her tongue, showing everyone that her mouth was empty. Suddenly, a white host appeared on her tongue quicker than anyone else could see. One person was barely able to capture a photo at the last second, offering proof of the miracle. Many experts have attempted to explain the girls and their visions, but no explanation has been found. Doctors and psychiatrists agree that all of the girls were perfectly normal, and there was no reason to believe they were suffering from any psychological problems, because there's no other logical explanation. So what do you make of these mysterious angel encounters? Could these people have seen real angels, or could they all be made up? Viking Sunstone Compass. It is no secret that the Scandinavians were seen as the greatest seafarers of their time, responsible for some of the most incredible navigation breakthroughs and land discoveries that many other nations refused to even attempt at the height of their power. The cause for their seafaring skills have often been a mystery, but several researchers now believe that, with the use of crystals, the ancient Viking people were capable of even when the sun and sky were not visible to be used for navigation. Referred to as sunstones, the Vikings described using a number of small crystals to assist with navigation even when the sun was not visible in the sky. The way this was accomplished was by holding the crystal up to the sky and moving the crystal around until it would show the position of the sun. Historians had first believed that the stories explaining the use of the sunstone as and had no real bearing in navigation of any kind, as no surviving instances of these sunstones are around today. Interestingly enough, however, researchers have begun to realize that by using polarizing crystals, it is possible to find the location of the sun, even when the sky is overcast and even when the sun is behind the horizon. This has led researchers believing that perhaps the sunstones were these special crystalline structures, but that any evidence to how they would work is still being researched and understood in the modern day. The discovery of materials 10 million times stronger than steel. A neutron star forms after a massive star becomes so large that the gravitational forces caused by its mass cause the star to implode to form a densely compacted neutron star. If the mass is not enough to cause the entity to form into a black hole, the star will stay as an imploded neutron star. Researchers from the United States and Canada performed advanced simulations regarding the formation of these neutron stars last year, and plan on publishing their findings in the journal Physical Review Letters that outline the possible formation of stringy dense materials that could be 10 million times stronger than steel. Though there are no practical applications of the materials due to even a sugar cube of the material weighing the equivalent of Mount Everest, the material being referred to as nuclear pasta led to deeper implications and understanding as to the formation of the that can be inspired from the layering design and stringing nature of the neutronium material. NASA visualization shows a black hole's warped world. Black holes have been a matter of speculation and research for quite some time now. Researchers have spent a huge amount of time trying to understand their chemistry and physics. However, the vast distance and lack of technological advancements have proven to be major hurdles. Still, astronomers have been able to find out a lot about these mysterious giants that seem to defy the laws of physics. Recently, NASA scientists created a new visualization showing a black hole's warped world. The visualization illustrated how the gravity of a black hole distorts our view. This stunning visualization simulates the appearance of a black hole in a state where the infalling matter collects into a thin hot structure, known as the accretion disk. The extreme gravity of the black hole skews the light emitted by various regions of the accretion disk. This, in result, produced the misshapen appearance of a black hole. Various studies conducted during recent years have given new insights into the properties of black holes. Researchers first discovered a black hole in the 1960s. However, at that time, they did not know what it was exactly. It took them over 10 years to identify it as a black hole. Since then, astronomers have come a long way, and on the 10th of April, 2019, NASA released the first ever direct image of a black hole. Taken from the Event Horizon Telescope, the image showed a supermassive black hole at the core of the supergiant elliptical galaxy Messier 87. According to researchers, there is a possibility that each galaxy could have a black hole at its center. Even our Milky Way galaxy has a black hole. Luckily, our solar system is located far away from this black hole, and as a result, there is very little chance of our Earth getting swallowed by it. Height 611 UFO incident. During the reign of the Soviet Union, there was a tremendous amount of sightings and UFO incidents that were cast aside and forgotten about due to the fact that the government of the Soviet Union worked tirelessly to hide evidence of extraterrestrials from its citizens in fear of its people discovering that there were higher powers that extended beyond the power and control of the Soviet Union. Because of this, many of these incidents are not well known even amongst dedicated members and researchers of the alien community. One of these such events was the Height 611 UFO incident that occurred back in 1986 on the 29th of January in the small town of Dalnyagorsk. According to the residents of the town, a strange reddish orb of a massive size was spotted at around 8 p.m. that had passed over the town. This reddish orb was described as being as half as large as the moon overhead and to have appeared to have been similar in color and luminescence to that of a dark red flame. Eyewitnesses also noted that as the object flew parallel to the ground, it made no noise of any kind as it passed over something that seemed impossible to accomplish with even the most advanced aircraft imaginable. Using specified witness timeframes and the flight path of the object, investigators calculated that the orb flew at approximately 34 miles per hour, and that it was flying roughly 700 to 800 meters above the ground. As the object continued its flight path overhead, it suddenly began descending quickly and crashed into the side of the mountains located near the town. Oddly enough, every witness reported that not only did the object crash into the side of the mountain and appear to have exploded or spread temporarily as a natural wildfire before dissipating and completely disappearing, but that as it crashed it made no sound whatsoever, which is a feat that is impossible to accomplish regardless of any advancements made in flight capabilities, as it seems to divide the fundamental laws of physics themselves. Further investigation yielded interesting results, as some rocks at the impact site had drops of lead that had previously been molten before solidifying on the rocks in the cold. Not only this, but rare earth metals were also recovered in the vicinity that were not naturally found in any types of deposits on the mountain previously. Unfortunately, the pictures taken by the investigators at the time, when later developed, turned out to be blank, almost as if they had been swapped out entirely and replaced with fresh film in an effort to cover up the evidence gathered at the location of impact. The official explanation provided by the Soviet Union at the time was that a meteorite had recently impacted the site and was the cause of the strange findings of the rare earth metals and strange chemical composites. However, the provided explanation had failed to explain the eyewitness accounts of the event, as well as the fact that sightings of strange red orbs landing on the mountainside would continue at the site over the next few years. The Ubaid lizard men, aliens, human-lizard hybrids, or an advanced reptilian civilization. This might sound bizarre, but all these are the possibilities associated with one of the most unique archaeological discoveries of all time. Discovered in the famous Al Ubaid archaeological site of Iraq, the humanoid figures with lizard-like features have baffled the archaeologists for more than a century now. An English historian and Egyptologist, Henry Reginald Hall, first excavated the site in 1919. He and his team found a number of artifacts dating back 7,000 years. Among these artifacts were strange statues of creatures that seemed like humans and had heads like lizards. It's a consensus among scholars that Mesopotamia, which is the region where modern-day Iraq and Iran are located, is the birthplace of human civilization. And this is exactly the place where the Ubaid lizard men, along with hundreds of thousands of other strange artifacts, have been discovered. The inability of modern-day science to explain the lizard men and the lack of historic knowledge has given rise to many conspiracy theories about these lizard men. Some alien enthusiasts are convinced that the Ubaid lizard men actually depict a much more sophisticated race that visited the Earth from a distant star during the Ubaidian era. However, some have tried to make more sense of the artifacts and have claimed that these actually represent the common practice of skull modification during the Ubaidian era. While mainstream science of today does not support the idea of a reptilian race, the inability of science to explain these 7,000-year-old statues gives rise to many questions. Were there any creatures that resembled these statues? Was mankind in contact with some advanced alien civilization? Or were these statues actually the statues of demons made in order to please the dark spirits? Whatever these were, all we can do now is speculate, as the truth lies somewhere between science and fiction. For eons, humans have pondered about the possibilities of tomorrow. The idea of advanced technology and artificial intelligence has both been praised and scrutinized through the decades. It could make humanity an advanced civilization, or it could destroy everything that we hold. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at a breakthrough in artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence and the Vatican Archives. The Vatican Archives hold secrets untold. Without a doubt, the knowledge hidden away within the archives could rival the lost knowledge which resided in the Library of Alexandria. For 12 centuries, the Vatican has gathered texts and scriptures, concealing them from common sight. The vast libraries are inaccessible to most, only allowing cardinals and the Pope to enter. The Vatican, on occasion, has been known to grant permission to the archives to certain individuals, but it's an extremely rare occurrence and access is limited to specific scriptures. The Vatican archives are 53 miles long, yet only a few pages worth of content has ever been made available to the public. Codice ratio, however, could be the breakthrough to reveal never-before-published knowledge from the Vatican's library. Its combination of an optical character recognition, known as OCR, and artificial intelligence software, means it's designed to read through text and publish transcripts online for all to read. Should this be successful, the technology could reveal historical, religious, and sacred documents from all over the world to the public. The OCR program has scanned books and printed documents before, but it isn't made to skim through the Vatican archives. The software uses the spaces between letters to break down each letter image, which it then compares to images in its memory bank. The OCR matches the images and translates the letters into code, making the term searchable. Unfortunately, such a process works best on typeset texts. It struggles greatly with handwriting, especially medieval cursive calligraphy. The program can't recognize where a letter ends and another begins. OCR requires a huge memory bank to have it memorize thousands of words rather than some letters, and is a prominent technical challenge. CODIS Ratio is working to fix this by trying something never done before. The main scientists in charge of the project are Marco Maio Reno, Donatella Famani, Elena Nedu, and Paolo Marialdo. They created a system where the program recognized individual pen strokes instead of whole words. They've called this the jigsaw segmentation. To achieve improved results, the researchers turned to high schoolers for help. They recruited students from 24 schools in Italy to build the memory banks for the project. Once it was developed, the OCR analyzed several documents from the Vatican registers, mostly historical letters to European monarchs and noble political correspondence. The results were mixed. The texts the program managed to transcribe were full of spelling errors. This is because the system struggled with certain letters such as N and M, but regardless, 96 of the letters were transcribed correctly. The team is planning on feeding it more text and documents to transcribe so it will adapt and improve. Jigsaw segmentation could open up letters, diaries, and scientific historical documents worldwide, thus easing the process of reading and finding research materials. Rager Wood, a historian of philosophy in Indiana University, claims that it will be problematic for manuscripts that are not professionally written but copied by non-professionals, and Professor Wood does have a point. Handwritten lettering isn't as consistent as computer lettering is, and the act of teaching the OCR will be a tremendously difficult task. As for digitally copying the manuscripts of the Vatican, the concept of being able to bring such grand, unknown scriptures back to life is amazing, keeping all the scientists involved hopeful and determined. They wish someday to be able to comprehend Vatican texts and make them accessible to the public. Elon Musk's Neuralink. In March 2017, Neuralink, a company funded by Elon Musk, was revealed. During a presentation, Musk showcased his newest scientific idea, brain chips. He showed a pig who had a coin-sized chip inside of her brain. Elon Musk claims it's kind of like a Fitbit in your skull with tiny wires. It actually fits quite nicely in your skull. Could be under your hair and you wouldn't know. He claims that Neuralink plans to start human trials soon. According to the organization, the device could help sufferers of neurological disorders control phones and computer devices with their mind. Musk announced that his device could someday even cure dementia, Parkinson's, and spinal cord injuries. Neuralink will record electrical signals in the brain in order to determine potential actions. The official website of Neuralink stated the following: in the movement-related areas of the brains, neurons represent intended movements. There are neurons in the brain that carry information about everything we see, feel, think, or touch. EEGs can monitor neural activity from outside the head, but they cannot analyze specific signals. Whereas the Neuralink, which would be inserted inside the brain, could do this with ease. The link would be made of micron-scale threads and inserted into areas of the brain which control movement. Every thread will contain a multitude of electrodes. These threads, Musk assures, will be flexible and tiny. So much so they'll be inserted using a robotic machine and not by human hands. This therefore leaves no room for human error. A Neuralink app would accompany the brain chip. This would allow you to control your iOS device, keyboard, or mouse with your mind by simply thinking about what you'd like to do. Officially, the Neuralink is a BMI, fully integrated brain-machine interface, sometimes referred to as a BCI or a brain-computer interface. The BMI can link technology to the brain directly. Information from the brain will be sent to the device or vice versa. For example, a computer could send information to the brain that would make it possible to restore the sense of touch to the body. However, many question the safety of such a device. Since countless things could go, there's also a lack of safety criteria. It's new territory and lacks standard guidelines, which means we could have to take the company for their word when they claim it's safe to use. And is that really a risk that people are willing to take? The main goal of the project is allegedly to help those with paralysis have their independence returned to them. This is by allowing them the power to control the electronics around them. It'll make it easier to communicate in everyday society, but might let people be more creative, since they can edit and alter videos, artworks, and photographs with their mind. Clinical trials are yet to begin, and safety has not been tested as of yet. But Musk assures the public that safety is something they all take extremely seriously. Unfortunately, there's always a risk for anything to go wrong. They state that the neurosurgical robot is capable and efficient at electrode insertion. They say that the hole made to the skull would be 23 millimeters large in diameter. But inserting this device into the head could put people at risk of heavy bleeding. There's also a chance that blood vessels may be damaged. Currently, the company is facing opposition from many critics who fear the danger which this device may impose on human life. New York robot passes self-awareness test. The King's Wise Men puzzle has been solved by a robot in New York. The puzzle serves as a test of self-awareness. The puzzle itself is confusing on purpose, an induction puzzle meant to be a test of intelligence and logic. In the scenario of the puzzle, the king calls upon three wise men to his court. He is to choose an advisor and places hats upon their head. They are able to see the hats of the other two men, but not their own. The hats are either white or blue, and then king will give the title of advisor to the first man to know what color hat he's wearing. There's either 1, 2, or 3 blue hats in this scenario, and the king declared the contest would be fair to all participants. They were also forbidden to speak to each other. This puzzle was altered for 3 robots by roboticists. They told the robots they had been given a pill that forbade them from speaking to one another. All 3 of them were then asked which was still able to speak. None of them were able to solve the problem and pondered over it until one of them uttered, "I don't know." Immediately they spoke up again. "Sorry, I know now." The robot heard its own voice and realized that they were still able to speak. The team of scientists realized that this test, though simple, is the first breakthrough in many that will make robots even more useful to humans in the future. Should they be able to solve problems with improved philosophical wisdom? John Salins, philosopher of technology, claims the team are barking up the right tree. This by no means suggests that robots have proper consciousness in the sense we know it, but it means they're able to simulate problems and solve them logically, something that can be beneficial to humanity. Just last year, an artificial intelligence supercomputer managed to convince humans it was actually a teenage boy. It seems as boundless potential for the future. Could a world exist in which artificial intelligence and humanity is perfectly balanced? Can technology really be trusted and relied on, or will it be our downfall? 1,000 questions which lack answers, but what we can know, rest assured, is that whatever our future is, it won't be bland nor dull. It'll be exciting and innovative, or, should some critics be believed, a hellish nightmare. So what do you make of these artificial intelligences and its ability? Sarcophagus found in Egypt. In July 2018, construction workers found a sarcophagus buried 16 feet under a residential area of Alexandria in Egypt. The mysterious sarcophagus immediately became the center of attention of the archaeological world. On close examination, the archaeologists estimated that it was probably from the Ptolemaic period, which had started after the death of the sarcophagus was 6 feet tall and 9 feet long. It was the largest sarcophagus ever found in Alexandria. While everyone was curious to know who was buried inside the sarcophagus, some researchers hinted that it could contain the body of one of the most influential men in history, Alexander the Great. Some people warned that it would not be wise to open the sarcophagus as it might be cursed, just like the King Tutankhamun's tomb was. It has been widely reported that in 1922, when the tomb of King Tutankhamun was opened, those involved with the discovery suffered from strange deaths. The archaeologists and their family members either died in strange accidents or suffered from strange illnesses until they died. However, the curious scientists were determined to unravel the mystery of the giant sarcophagus. Ignoring the warnings of the curse, they opened the sarcophagus just a few days after its discovery and found 3 skeletons inside. The sarcophagus had sewage water inside it, and it resulted in accelerated decomposition of the human remains. According to researchers, the skeletons most probably belonged to the soldiers. One of the skeletons had a fractured skull caused by a sharp instrument. The archaeologists have not been able to get any clue about who these soldiers were or why they were buried together. The discovery of the sarcophagus under a residential area in Alexandria hints that there could probably be many other such remnants of the past lying under the city of Alexandria and other ancient cities in Egypt. K2155d may be habitable during recent years. NASA has discovered a handful of potentially habitable distant planets. One such planet is K2155d, orbiting the star K2155. It is the outermost planet to the star system. The planet and its host star are located in the Taurus constellation. Their distance from Earth is estimated to be around 200 light-years. While the planet was discovered by a team of Japanese astronauts from the Tokyo University, they used NASA's Kepler Space Telescope to make the discovery. K2155d is described as a super-Earth exoplanet. It is estimated to be 1.64 times bigger than Earth, and it is believed to be located near the transition zone between the small rock-based planets and larger gaseous planets. The climate models have predicted that the planet is in the habitable zone of its star. It could have large quantities of water present in liquid form. The temperature on its surface is estimated to be 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Astronomers are carrying out further research in order to determine its other properties. Most researchers believe that our best bet of finding extraterrestrial life is on such distant exoplanets that are located within the habitable zone of their host stars. Volcanic lightning. Volcanic eruptions are among the most powerful phenomenon of nature on Earth. They result in huge explosions, dense smoke clouds, and catastrophic lava flows. In addition, they also result in an astonishing additional natural phenomenon known as volcanic lightning. When a volcano erupts, it can cause an electrical discharge that looks quite similar to the lightning caused by a thunderstorm. They generate static electricity within the volcanic plume. This is why volcanic eruptions are sometimes also known as dirty thunderstorms. Unlike ordinary thunderstorms, the volcanic lightning can also happen before the formation of ice crystals in the ash clouds. Historical records show the description of volcanic lightning by Pliny the Younger, who was a lawyer, an author, and a magistrate of ancient Rome. He described the eruption of Mount Vesuvius that happened in 79 AD. More recently, volcanic lightning was first scientifically observed at the same Mount Vesuvius during the eruptions of 1858, 1861, 1868, and 1872. Professor Palmieri observed these eruptions from the Vesuvius Observatory, which is a surveillance center especially made for monitoring of 3 different volcanic areas in Italy. Since then, the phenomenon has been observed by various scientists during the subsequent volcanic eruptions in different parts of the world. A number of photos of volcanic lightning have also become quite popular during recent times. One of the most mind-blowing photos of the phenomenon was taken by Carlos Gutierrez over the Chaitén volcano in Chile. Another popular image of volcanic lightning was captured by Sergio Tapero, who is a Mexican photographer. The photo was titled The Power of Nature, and it was captured in Colima in Mexico. Volcanic lightning has also been observed in Alaska and Iceland. The disappearance of Bemaja Island, one of the most popular urban legends arising from Mexico, is that of the disappearance of a nearby island that many blame is the fault of the United States government. Made popular by the BBC's World Service documentary Mexico's Missing Island, Bemaja Island is a phantom islet that, according to maps as recent as the middle of the 19th century, should currently be lying off of the north coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. A survey done in 1997 was unable to locate the island and seemingly found that it had vanished from existence. Conspiracy theorists would later be the ones to find definitive proof of the existence of the island that spanned reference cartographer maps among 400 years of documents, despite many officials denying the existence of the island and blaming erroneous reports. Today, locals believe that the United States government purposefully destroyed the island using nuclear technologies similarly seen at Bikini Atoll to not only reduce the land claim of Mexican territories, but to also allow international passage for their own naval ships and submarines without breaking the treaties outlined in the United Nations Charter Laws of the Sea. On March 20th of 2009, the National Autonomous University of Mexico, as instructed by the WAS at the center of investigations all throughout the region of where the island was said to rest in an attempt to naturally explain the island's disappearance. The team used an oceanographic vessel known as Justo Sierra, of which was equipped with state-of-the-art devices to help uncover any low-lying lands or completely demolished areas. Though it was originally believed the United States had used nuclear weapons to destroy the islands, at the end of June of that year, the investigation was ended with overwhelming evidence that not only was there no evidence of such a conspiracy, but that there had been no destitution of an island ever having existed in the area, sunken or otherwise. Today, there appears to be no real answer as to the cause of the disappearance of this island, and locals still regard it as one of the most popular Mexican mysteries and urban legends. Callao volcano lava bubble, one of the most amazing and powerful natural phenomenon ever observed, has been the lava bubbles at the Callao volcano in Hawaii. Callao is an active shield volcano that is estimated to be more than 210,000 years old. According to researchers, this volcano remained under the sea for most of its life. It emerged above sea level about 100,000 years ago. In October 1969, the United States Geological Survey released a photograph that showed a large, 65 feet tall lava bubble that seemed ready to burst at any moment. In 2018, the photo was widely shared across the internet after it was tweeted by the United States Geological Survey. The formation of such lava bubbles is a very rare phenomenon. It is known as a lava dome fountain. Usually when the volcano erupts, they throw lava in powerful jets that form hundreds of, but in extremely rare cases they form such dome fountains which appear to be lava bubbles. Thankfully, new lava bubbles have not appeared at the Callao volcano for quite some time now. However, the Callao volcano is still an active volcano and there is still a threat of a violent eruption. I'm a Celebrity. Get Me Out of Fear is a British TV series, where every year celebrities go into a jungle to compete with one another. This year, because of everything that has happened, bosses decided to host the TV show inside an old castle in Wales. Grich Castle was selected as the location, and immediately those interested in the paranormal were excited by this. Various people who have worked and visited the castle have said it's not uncommon to see apparitions. And since the show aired, many have come forward with their stories of the castle. Recently, during one of the live shows, people noticed that there was a strange figure on one of the castle's windows. Photographs soon started to make the rounds on social media, with people saying that it looks like a large dark figure, while others said it had the general appearance of a monk. One person said the following about the image: "I can't be the only one who saw a dark figure in the windows of the castle. Is this place actually haunted?" End quote. Well, another person had this to say: "I was watching I'm a Celebrity alone and noticed this creepy figure in the window. I sent it to a few of my friends and asked if they'd seen it, but they said they didn't. However, when I looked online, I was happy to see that other people saw it too. It really creeped me out." End quote. Well, one skeptic said the following about the image, although it does appear to have the outline of a human: "Bear in mind this is a reality TV show, so this could have been placed here by the production crew to get people talking. And if that was the case, it's worked because these images have been all over Twitter." End quote. Interestingly though, before the show even started, various visitors came forward with their stories. saying that this castle is one of the most haunted places they visited. The castle's website has even admitted that real-life ghost encounters by visitors to Gritch Castle are commonplace. One castle worker said the following: "A few people have claimed to have seen a floating woman in white. Ghost hunters have also claimed to have felt the presence of her and gamekeepers. We think the Countess might be unhappy as her husband stripped the castle of valuables. They certainly didn't have a happy marriage." While another castle worker said this: "It wasn't long after working here that I too saw strange things in and around the castle. I have seen white apparitions floating around the castle, and sometimes these manifest into a humanoid figure, while other times they'll just vanish on the spot. The overall feel of the place is really creepy, especially when you're walking around the castle late at night. Sometimes screams can be heard echoing through the castle. I try not to let the activity get to me, but I can see why people would be scared of this castle." End quote. Some of the locals have shared their own stories of the castle, saying that every so often you can see a small girl standing on top of the castle. In the past, people have voiced their concern that the little girl may be lost or even living in the castle. But those who have spent years living in the area have said this is just one of the many spirits that live within the castle, saying that she's often seen during the winter months standing on top of the castle and looking out. One story claims that during her life she was a servant, but she unfortunately passed away within the castle. Others have claimed to have seen various caretakers of the castle, with visitors saying they'll randomly see a ghostly apparition walk past them and then vanish into thin air. Paranormal researchers have said that castles and other old monuments are some of the most common places to encounter paranormal beings, saying that anywhere that's old and has a dark history is usually a dwelling spot for dark beings. Some of the most commonly cited apparitions is that of the shadow people, described as being black masses that are usually seen during sleep paralysis, the black monk, which is normally seen around old castles and buildings, and the white lady, a ghostly apparition of a beautiful lady in a white dress. The reason for her appearance is usually because something terrible happened during her lifetime, and now she's cursed to play the events over and over in the real world. One place where the White's Lady has been seen is the House of Union Cemetery located in Stepney Road in eastern Connecticut. In fact, Lorraine Warren lived just down the road from Union Cemetery before her death in 2019. When asked about the cemetery, she said the following: "I can tell you that I know for a fact that this place is haunted. It's one of the most haunted places around." End quote. So what makes Union Cemetery one of the United States' most haunted cemeteries? The graveyard has become infamous for sightings of a white lady spirit which go back to at least the 1940s. The female ghost is said to have flying black hair and to be dressed in a long white gown or wedding dress. She walks the site of the cemetery at night, sometimes appearing on nearby roads. Ed Warren claimed to have captured definitive evidence of the White Lady ghost on videotape. Chillingly, several drivers have reported seeing the apparitions suddenly appear in the middle of the road, only to vanish on impact with their car. The identity of the mysterious White Lady figure is not known. The Warrens believe she was a young woman who passed away at childbirth. However, theories abound as to who she was during her time on Earth. One tell Holt she was a woman who was killed after slaying her husband. Another theory is that she was a young woman who passed away at the turn of the 20th century. However, the most well-known theory is that this is the ghost of a woman named Harriet B. Steely. Interestingly, there is a grave for Harriet B. Steely within the cemetery, which records that her death was preceded by the untimely death of her son in 1853. Could the White's Lady be the ghost of Harriet Steely, searching for the soul of her child? The White Lady is by no means the only presence to have been sighted in the cemetery. Some have seen soldiers on horseback. Others have heard the unearthly giggling of children. There have also been reports of visitors witnessing glowing arms, beams of light, and rolling mists. So what do you make of this image? Do you think it shows an apparition? Or do you think it's just pareidolia? Christians have long held many sacred remnants from the time when Jesus walked the earth. Ancient Catholics stormed the world in search of anything that they could bring back to Europe, from holy relics mentioned in the Bible to bone fragments of a saint, so that they might have a physical memorial for reverence in their sanctuaries. Although there is a long history of falsifying artifacts for the sake of profit or prominence, one of the most hotly contested of these is the Shroud of Turin, also known as the Holy Shroud. This piece of linen, found in the 14th century, bears a negative image of a man that some believe to be Jesus Christ and claim that the cloth is his burial shroud. The cloth was denounced in 1389 as a fake, a claim that faced heated opposition, and the modern-day Catholic Church has neither denounced nor endorsed the shroud. It is currently housed in the Cathedral of Turin in Italy, where it has remained since 1578. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at some of the mysteries that surround this revered shroud and the ongoing debate of its authenticity. New details emerge. The Shroud of Turin's authenticity has been hotly debated since its first appearance in 1390, while also holding firm the position as one of the most well-known relics of the Catholic Church. Finally, in 1988, a team of scientists were given permission to cut small samples of the cloth and sent it out to 3 different laboratories, all of whom independently dated the cloth to 1260 to 1390 AD. However, even the seemingly definitive results were contested, as critics claimed that the test swatches were from relatively more recent areas where the shroud had been patched, contaminated by a fire in the 16th century, or delivered inaccurate results due to the number of people who have handled the cloth over the centuries. There is vast amounts of evidence for both sides. Firstly, the shroud depicts the full-body image of a man lying with his hands crossed over himself as though for burial, with markings on his wrists. In the Middle Ages, Jesus Christ was also depicted with crucifixion marks over his palms, although in biblical days they would in fact have driven the stakes through the wrists. Additionally, experts remain mystified as to what could have created such an accurate negative image of a man on the cloth. Tests analyzing the cloth have found no evidence of pigments, paints, dyes, or stains on the fiber, while also confirming that at some point in its past the cloth had been in direct contact with the body. However, some experts believe that the Middle Ages date of the shroud points to its use as a burial shroud for a crucifixion victim of the day, centuries after Jesus was crucified. Adding to speculation, in 2018, a blood stain pattern analysis was performed on the shroud and concluded that the faint blood flow stains came from different angles and were not produced by one body as it was being laid out for burial. Believers in the shroud have also pointed out that the Middle Ages radiocarbon date could have been based on years of the shroud being on public display for believers to touch, kiss, and pray over after its reveal in the 14th century, as well as possible carbon monoxide contamination, both instances which could conceivably cause a first-century artifact to be inaccurately dated as Middle Ages. Radiocarbon dating of the cloth. In an attempt to put the matter of whether the Shroud of Turin was really a first-century original or a Middle Ages reproduction to rest, the Catholic Church permitted the radiocarbon dating of the shroud in the 1980s, once technology had advanced far enough that removing a large piece of cloth was not necessary. To make the radiocarbon dating as valid and incontestable as possible, the Vatican allowed the process to be open and observable. Present at the removal of the sample was the Archbishop of Turin Cathedral, physicists, representatives from the 3 labs that would be dating the shroud, the Techstars experts who could verify that the sample was taken from the original portions of the cloth, not a later repair. A small 10 mm by 70 mm sample was taken away from any damaged patches or charred areas and split into 3 portions, which was then sealed in aluminium foil inside stainless steel chambers to prevent contamination. The entire process was watched by multiple witnesses, as well as thoroughly documented through pictures and videos in an attempt to validate the process through which the sample was taken and prevent the need for a future sample to be taken for testing if at all possible. 2 containers were also similarly packaged with a control cloth and given to laboratories, which were not told whether they had the real shroud or a control group. However, these controls were easily identifiable as not from the ancient shroud due to the unique weave of the cloth, and the process of identifying their origins was not completed. Although the 3 laboratories agreed not to share their results among each other until the final conference and relabeled the samples so that technicians did not know where the cloth came from. All of this was in an attempt to eliminate any bias that a scientist or laboratory could have in skewing the results, as well as to validate whatever results were released. Once the final results were released, each laboratory presented roughly the same origin estimate, with not much of a difference to be considered significant. Conclusively, all three laboratories demonstrated a 95% confidence that the linen that was tested originated between 1260 to 1390, rounding up or down to the nearest 10 years. Therefore, the shroud was determined to date back to the Middle Ages, supporting the theory of a clever forgery. Unfortunately, despite the elaborate measures taken to validate whatever findings emerged, believers in the divine provenance of the shroud found a plethora of reasons to doubt the studies, citing contamination of the fibers and a host of other reasons. The debate raged on in forums and papers concerning the shroud, and many take the radiocarbon dating as a mere suggestion. Thus, what was intended to be a key step in determining the authenticity of the shroud, once and for all, ended up being a source just as hotly debated as the shroud itself. No paints or substances. No matter which side of the authenticity argument you find yourself on, an enduring mystery of the shroud is the source of the image of a man. If it were painted on as part of the supposed forgery of the Middle Ages, chemists would be able to analyze and identify the chemical profiles of the pigments used, as well as even microscopic signs of brushstrokes, both of which are conspicuously lacking. In fact, there is no evidence of any form of paint, dye, or any other substance being used to darken the fibers. It is as if the individual fibers simply changed color of their own accord, presumably from chemical reactions as a result of laying upon the body as the burial shroud of Jesus Christ. Laying on a human form in this manner could result in the chemical darkening of the cellulose fibers of the cloth with the application of even very mild heat. Although other burial shrouds don't usually bear negative images of the person they encapsulated. Additionally, there is the presence of blood stains and badly decomposed DNA that points to the fact that this was likely used for some type of body. Another hypothesis for the source of the image stems from the fact that the image imprinted on the cloth is a negative, that is, the dark and bright parts of the image are reversed, which is a technique in photography. Some argue that if the cloth were indeed a medieval forgery, the image could have conceivably been imprinted on the cloth using primitive photography materials that would have been accessible, such as silver nitrate and a quartz lens. Researchers have been able to create replications of the shroud using these simple techniques, although they haven't been successful in making the image remain on the cloth when the silver is removed. However, most theorists acknowledge that this is a stretch of the imagination, as there is no documentation of any sort of knowledge of this type. And the odds of no mention of such a groundbreaking technology being made in any surviving record is slim. The fact that the image is likely not man-made, but possibly rather the result of a chemical happenstance, refutes the theory that the Shroud of Turin was a clever forgery of the Middle Ages, and the radiocarbon dating rules out the authenticity of it being a first-century burial shroud. Theory moderates combine these two compelling pieces of evidence and suggest that perhaps the linen was the shroud of a crucified man in the Middle Ages, something that was not unheard of for the time. Whether or not the Shroud of Turin is even proven to be authentic or merely a forgery, it is nonetheless an incredibly powerful artifact that contributes greatly to the faith of millions of people all over the world. Even from the perspective of non-believers, the shroud is a powerful archaeological piece dating back to the Middle with a shockingly accurate depiction of a crucified man. Although how this image appeared on the cloth will likely remain a hotly debated mystery, the significance of the Shroud of Turin cannot be contested, no matter which side you fall on. But what do you make of these mysteries around the Shroud of Turin? With the advancement of technology, millions of us are now able to tune into live streams to watch the launches of space missions. There's never been a better time to access space footage from home. However, this footage often causes controversy in UFO circles, with hundreds of images and clips hitting the web and becoming the subjects of viral debates. There are people that spend hundreds of hours carefully analyzing footage, looking for anything that may seem unusual. One place where alleged UFOs have been seen is that of Mars. Ever since humans managed to send rovers to Mars, There have been people who have claimed to have seen Martian objects on the planet's surface. Famous authors and scientists have long speculated about possible Martian life on the planet, so it was inevitable that humans would become fascinated with signs of life once we reached its surface. UFO hunters online have spent hundreds of hours scanning through thousands of live streams and NASA photographs in hopes of finding something strange. This has in turn caused other researchers to try their luck in finding anomalies in these photographs, and it seems that there's no shortage of strange images. One photograph that was sent to me several years ago was this one, with the individual saying that it looks like a large object can be seen hovering above the Martian surface. Not much information could be gathered about the photograph, with them saying that they sent it to me because they thought it was a UFO. Others have seen similar-looking objects on the Martian surface, with one UFO researcher saying the following: "Seeing unidentified flying objects on the Martian surface is not uncommon, and if you're patient and have time to look through the massive NASA library, you will likely discover one yourself. I've seen many objects hovering above Mars, some of which are similar to orbs while others look like large triangular graphs. I believe that something is happening on Mars that we're not being told about." Another place where UFOs have been reported is that of the International Space Station. UFOs have been seen countless times on live streams and photographs, but there are some which have caused more of a stir on life. The NASA live stream from the International Space Station seems to have caught 3 autos which appeared to pass close to the ISS. UFO enthusiasts were left debating what the objects were online. It's not one, but 3 objects came into view on the NASA live feed. Some thought that these objects could have been surveilling human space missions, while others tried to pass them off as a lens flare or other more common occurrences. While UFO enthusiasts were quick to acknowledge the mysterious smoke objects, NASA claims these interferences with live streams are simply lens distortion and not some type of alien craft. While some UFO researchers have said that these unknown crafts could be of alien origin, scientists have said this is not the case and we shouldn't always jump to conclusions. In 2016, another random object was caught on camera and appeared to fly by the ISS. A diamond-shaped object could be initially seen, but as the footage went on, the object appeared to be changing its shape, and the NASA live feed was randomly cut at the same time. Viewers looking at a blue screen in this instantly caused wild speculation online as to why NASA cut the live feed. NASA later claimed they had not cut the live feed intentionally and stated they had in fact lost transmission. The timing of the lost transmission seemed all too coincidental to viewers, and many were left believing a cover-up was the real reason for the live feed cut. In April 2017, another mysterious object caught the attention of UFO hunters, and this was again on a live stream. A cylinder-type object entered the view of the camera and was quickly spotted by UFO enthusiasts. Other mysterious footage seen on the ISS live stream went viral, when viewers claimed to have seen a mysterious object heading directly towards the ISS, before quickly disappearing from view, despite some saying it was an unidentified flying object. I've suggested it was nothing more than space junk. Ivan Wagner, a Russian astronaut on the International Space Station, claimed to have caught a UFO on camera. Wagner tweeted the following: "Space guess or how I filmed the new time-lapse." The video, which lasts for 1 minute, shows the auroras passing near Antarctica and Australia. Wagner also said this: "However, in the video you will see something else, not only the aurora." End quote. The incredible footage shows the curved edge of the Earth at night, with the green lights of the auroras moving across its surface, with several objects visible in the background. Between 9 and 12 seconds, there are objects which appear to be flying in a formation. Though the video is a time-lapse, so even though in the tweet they appear quickly, the actual footage of the objects flying would be around 52 seconds in real time. The International Space Station is a UFO hotspot when it comes to these sightings. Are alien life forms trying to understand and follow our space endeavors? Or do you think these are just space debris being picked up by the space station cameras? Another common place where unidentified flying objects have been reported is that of our moon. In 2016, hundreds of UFOs were reported to have been seen taken off from the surface of the moon. However, Experts have claimed this is just a natural phenomenon, which is seen any time you look at the edge of the moon's surface. Experts claim that what's been seen is nothing more than an optical illusion, caused by digital glitches known as artifacts. Though many UFO sightings are reported, NASA live feeds are often among the most prominent places for UFO researchers to find sightings of mysterious objects. There are many more UFO hunters who don't take to observing the skies at night, but rather observe space from their computers, looking through hunters' photos and watching live feeds. They say this is one of the best ways to see these strange objects, that it allows you to compare them to photographs taken a matter of seconds before. Still, UFO researchers and scientists still disagree on what they're seeing, with scientists saying these are nothing more than natural phenomena, or UFO researchers think these UFOs belong to something much more advanced than us. So what do you make of this strange object seen hovering above the Martian surface? Do you think it shows a real craft? Or do you think it's just a camera anomaly? National parks are home to both some of the greatest wonders in the world and some of the most famous, intriguing, and tragic unsolved mysteries. Ironically, the most well-known and beautiful landscapes we see on postcards are also home to some of the most disturbing stories. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 accounts of brave people who faced the dangers of the wilderness. Stephen Grunwald, discovered in the Rocky Mountain National Park. 24-year-old Stephen Grunwald of Greenville, New York, was seen alive for the last time in Boulder, Colorado on August 28, 2020. On September 10th, he was reported missing, but tragically he had already passed away by August 29th. Grunwald's friends became concerned after he did not return from a hiking trip they believed he planned to take in the Rocky Mountain National Park. Grunwald had been roaming the area for a while as he was considering moving there. Towards the beginning of the search, park rangers located his vehicle parked at the Glacier Gorge trailhead. It was assumed that he had attempted the Glacier Gorge traverse. The trail is difficult, stretching 19 miles and home to 11 peak summits. But Grunwald was known as someone well-suited to the outdoors. Unfortunately, after the discovery of the car, the search went downhill. They could not proceed because a storm that had arrived in the area on September 8th left 10 inches of snow in the park, along with 50 miles per hour winds and an 11-degree wind chill. Searchers had to wait for the storm to end to actually search the trail. Only a few days later, they were covering serious terrain on the Glacier Gorge. They looked around rocks and fields but couldn't search the steep alpine areas because of ice buildup. Grunwald's body was found on September 14th. On this day, the weather had warmed up to the 60s and conditions became more favorable to search the entire area. The searchers camped in Lake Powell the night before and resumed activity early on Monday. Aerial searches were conducted on both days as well. A dog team from the Front Range Rescue greatly contributed to the finding of Grunwald's body, which was quickly transported by helicopter to a landing zone, and then to the Larimer County coroners for an autopsy. Apparently, loss of life is not uncommon in the Rocky Mountain National Park. 7 other passings were reported in this same year. The coroner officially deemed Grunwald's loss of life an accident caused by multiple blunt force injuries. While foul play is not suspected, the specific conditions of his passing remain a mystery. Michael Fissery, Yosemite National Park. 51-year-old Michael Allen Fissery, avid hiker, sadly took his last hike on June 15, 2005 in the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir in Yosemite National Park. He had planned the solo journey to cover Rancheria Falls, Till Mountain, and Lake Vernon. Fissery was last seen heading up towards the mountain on the Pacific Crest Trail. His family became concerned when he did not arrive back home on June 19th. This date marked 4 days since Fissery embarked on the hike and also the day his wilderness permit expired. 2 days later, on June 21st, his family phoned the Park Service and the search had begun. The search consisted of professionals from 5 counties and included aerial searches and rescue dogs. The only thing ever uncovered by the search was a backpack found near Till Mountain with a topographical map, camera, and bottle of water. Fitzroy is still missing to this day, and as of 2018 remained on the National Park Service's cold cases list. On April 5, 2012, 7 years after Fitzroy's disappearance, a comment was displayed in the National Parks Traveler. The author claimed to be Michael's brother, who warns readers about the comment. Reads, Michael Fitzroy, the hiker mentioned above who disappeared in Yosemite in 2005, was my brother. While Michael was never reliant upon technology, I firmly believe he was not adequately prepared for his hike in terms of the equipment he did carry. He apparently deviated from his planned route, which made the search much more difficult. I strongly recommend all hikers to consult any variety of pack lists found on the internet focusing on the 10 essentials. Please make sure to leave a planned itinerary with at least one person and stick to it. Please, if only for the sake of those who are waiting for you at home, do not attempt even a day hike without being adequately prepared. While Fitzroy's lack of suppliers remains a plausible contributor to circumstances of his loss of life, the lack of evidence is odd. The Park Service spent $452,000 on running a comprehensive search, only to end with only one clue. Searches like this often turn up clothes, equipment, or remains. It is also strange that a backpacker with more than 30 years of wilderness experience would leave behind a backpack. So far, no one has been able to offer sufficient motivation for why Fitzroy would have abandoned supplies in the first place. Ruth and Rupert, Yosemite National Park. Ruth and Rupert is another case of hike turned into tragedy. She was last seen on August 14, 2000 in the Curry Village area of Yosemite National Park at noon. She had originally planned to join a group backpacking in the park, but an eye infection that sent her to Yosemite Valley Medical Clinic also caused her to fall behind the group. Undeterred from adventure, she is believed to have attempted a solo day hike from Yosemite Falls to the Foresta area. Rupert was confident in the park, having made 2 trips previously. In general, she is known as a highly experienced backpacker, even making it to the top of Tanzania's Mount Kilimanjaro with a frozen foot. The hike she originally planned to do before the group moved on without her was a 30-mile trip in the backcountry that takes 7 days. The strange part of her decision to explore her own path was that she only took a sweater and minimal other necessities. She did not contact any friends or family about where she planned to go or where she would return. Evidence relating to her disappearance was not found until 2008, 8 years later, when her backpack was uncovered in the Fireplace Creek drainage. This location is along her presumed hiking route, but nothing else has ever been found. Her family has made statements to suggest that Rupert does not match the profile of a runaway and that they suspect foul play. To this day, no one is quite sure where Rupert is, if she is alive, why she took on a new route, and why she did not take proper supplies. Clearly, national parks are not always the spirited paradises they're told to be. It seems some spots are more dangerous than others. Yosemite, which features in 2 of these cases, accounts for about a quarter of the money the National Park Service spent on search and rescue. Hopefully these stories don't discourage you from adventure, but remind you to always be prepared. What do you make of these national park mysteries? Ghosts have been a part of lore and legend for centuries as a way to explain the unexplainable or spooky, or simply to feel closer to loved ones who may have passed away. Ghost tours and ghost hunts have long been a popular pastime for those who enjoy the thrill of brushing sides with the other world. Photos and sightings of mysterious specks and glitches have been known to spark intense debates across the internet. However, nobody has ever been able to entirely disprove the existence of spirits wandering our world, and specters have been given credit for many things that are distinctly paranormal in nature. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 instances of strange ghost sightings that are utterly spooky. Mysterious ghost in photo. Ghost fanatics have been known to attribute the smallest of lens flares or misplaced shadows to evidence of a supernatural presence in a photograph. Although usually these anomalies can be explained, occasionally a photograph is taken that reveals something totally unexplainable and undeniably ghostly. This was the case for the Ogletree family, who went on a fishing trip where their youngest daughter Haley snapped a seemingly normal selfie. The family had been fishing at a set of backwards ponds where they were the only family in the secluded area. Yet when Haley looked at the picture she had taken, there appeared to be a chilling addition to the party. Behind Haley, in the background of her selfie, her dad leaned over in the truck bed, presumably packing up from their fishing trip. What was truly unsettling, however, was the man standing directly to her father. He appears to be slightly translucent and blends in with the trees and woods behind him, yet all of his features are very distinct and you can clearly see the details of his face, clothing, and the cap that he is wearing, ruling out any simple explanation such as a lens flare, overexposure, or some other trick of the lighting. Fortunately for the Ogletree family, the man is and looks friendly and harmless. The most obvious explanation for the photo is that a ghostly figure happened to have been caught on camera. Most pictures with undeniable images of humans have been dismissed as hoaxes with the ghost edited in for sensational value. It is very rare for images featuring definite ghostly figures to not be exposed for having been tampered with. However, if it is legitimate, it would be a huge clue for those seeking to confirm the existence of ghosts on Earth, as it is likely one of the clearest images of a specter seen thanks to the detail of the ghost's face and clothing. One thing is for sure though, if it is indeed a ghost, it was definitely a friendly one. The many ghost sightings at Ye Olde Man and Scythe Most Hauntings, especially repeated sightings or spooky occurrences, revolve around a location with a history of loss of life, sickness, or a vengeful owner. Ye Olde Man and Scythe in Bolton, England has a little bit of each of these qualifications, making it a prime candidate for the paranormal. It is one of the oldest pubs in Great Britain, dating back to at least 1251, making it almost 800 years old. The location has seen its fair share of ghosts and hauntings. It was rebuilt and has changed hands throughout the centuries. However, its most famous owner was likely the family of James Stanley, 7th Earl of Derby, in the 1600s. James Stanley was complicit in the Siege of Bolton, which resulted in more than 1,000 residents being slaughtered in what came to be known as the Bolton Massacre. Stanley fled the area but was captured 7 years later in the Battle of Worcester and was brought back to the still angry residents of Bolton and faced losing his life due to his crimes. He was allowed to stay in the prayer room of his family pub in the hours before his execution as he awaited his fate. He was beheaded just outside the pub in the market square on October 15, 1651, and it is said that he still haunts the cellar of Ye Olde Man and Scythe. To this day, the chair that he supposedly sat in as he awaited his final moments is still inside the pub, adding to circulating rumors of Stanley's ghost haunting the premises. Although Stanley is the most famous ghost suspected of lingering on the premises, there is a long history of hauntings at the location. One set of paranormal experts recorded multiple voices with their ghost hunting equipment. Several amateur ghost hunters, as well as closed-circuit security footage, have also caught unsuspecting spirits lingering in doorways and around the property. In one instance, the owner of the property came in to open the pub and noticed that a single glass had been smashed on the floor. Suspicious, he went to check the security footage and found that the feed had inexplicably stopped at 6:18 a.m. The last thing visible on the video was a strange, ghostly figure appearing out of nowhere, which some believe to be Stanley himself. The owners of the pub have claimed that at least 25 restless spirits currently wander the property, among them a woman who is said to have hanged herself in the cellar several centuries ago, a small girl, and a phantom dog. Although many say the security footage was an easily pulled-off hoax, there is no doubt the long history of battles, murders, and illnesses that the pub has lived through could mean that several ghosts still linger on the property, haunting visitors. Haunting of Viaduct Tavern. Paranormal experts across the United Kingdom acknowledge the Viaduct Tavern as one of the most haunted locations in the City of London. The tavern has a history rich in suffering, making it a perfect location for hauntings and spirits lingering on Earth. It first opened in 1869 and remains one of the only gin places in the City of London. Gin was much cheaper than beer at the time, and gin appealed to the parts of the population that were more strapped for cash, such as the working class and unemployed. Adding to the occasionally seedy nature of the Viaduct Tavern patrons was its prime location across from a prison that conducted popular public executions. People flocked to the tavern on execution days and treated the spectacle as great entertainment. It was said that you could see the proceedings from every window of the viaduct. The building's location also had ties to a second prison, as it was rumored to have been built on the remains of a demolished debtor's prison, and the last remaining cells from its previous life still remain in the tavern cellar to this day. Many people say that much of the paranormal activity that can be seen and felt in the building largely emanates from one of these cells, where local legends claim that a debtor was left to pass away. Although the tavern's history of loss of life and criminal activity might lead one to believe that there would be several vengeful ghosts haunting the grounds, it seems that the vast majority of the specters and paranormal activity on the premises are harmless. Many even think that there is a friendly poltergeist that haunts the premises, pulling pranks on the patrons and stealing their drinks when their backs are turned. In the 1980s, the daughter of the landlord reported hearing footsteps come up the stairs to the room where she was reading a newspaper. The paper was jerked from her hands and the footsteps receded back down the stairs. Some have reported feeling strange taps and brushes, but when they look there is nobody there. A pair of electricians doing maintenance in the same loft where the newspaper was snatched reportedly witnessed a heavy roll of carpet lift into the air of its own accord and thump back to the ground. Sometimes the stories aren't so harmless, and many of these more sinister stories focus on the spooky ancient jail cells in the cellar. A former landlord reported that he entered the cellar to get supplies and the heavy door suddenly slammed and locked. The lights went out and somebody whispered, "There's just two of us down here now." The landlord was locked in the basement with what was presumably the spirit that haunted the cell, until his wife heard his cries for help and rescued him. Many more visitors to the Viaduct Tavern have felt menacing energies or a cold breath or hand brush across the back of their neck when viewing the supposedly haunted cell. This reputation of both friendly and unfriendly ghosts is what has earned the Viaduct Tavern the reputation of one of the most haunted buildings in London. Stories of hauntings and ghostly activity have prevailed as a source of entertainment for centuries and likely will come in this fashion for many centuries to come, sending shivers down the spines of both believers and non-believers of the supernatural. Even though skeptics might point to occurrences of hauntings and photo evidence of ghosts as mere hoaxes, even the harshest cynic cannot deny that occasionally there are energies that lurk amongst us, that are hard to explain any other way than by acknowledging them as distinctly ghostly. What do you make of these mysterious ghostly sightings and stories? Some of the more skeptical amongst us may deny and refute the existence of miracles, whilst others wholeheartedly believe in a helping hand from the universe, a religious savior, or even a loved one from beyond the grave when we most need this help. Whilst these events may be considered confusing or exciting, the majority of those on the receiving end of these marvels often describe a feeling of relief. Without a clear scientific or factual explanation, these phenomena frequently become the subject of retellings and study, as we try and unpick a truth that may not be there. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 miracle stories. Helped by an entity. In 1980, single mother Deb was driving home from her parents, having collected her 2 infant children whom they had taken care of for the day, when she claims the family were pushed to safety by an angel. In San Bernardino County, California, Deb and her 2 children were heading home after a long day at 11:30 p.m. Unsurprisingly, considering the late hour, both the babies were sleeping in the back seat of the car. Deb drove a car that she herself dubbed an old clunker, and the car had plenty of problems to have earned this name. One of the most notable issues was the fuel gauge. This was broken, therefore Deb had to keep an estimated guess as to how much gas was left, though as you would expect this wasn't always the most precise. This was one of those circumstances. Deb said that halfway home the car started to sputter. Her next course of action was to pull off as soon as possible, though this ramp was slightly uphill. The incline certainly didn't help her car in its losing battle, and the car gave in just shy of the hilltop. Deb and her children were stranded. The roads were quiet, in part due to the late hour and a lack of traffic, though the surroundings themselves did not help. Deb described the scene as there being nothing around but empty fields and distant. She did know, however, that there was a service station nearby, roughly 0.25 miles away. The problem was getting there, with no cars around to ask, and, being in the 80s, we didn't all have a phone in our pocket to give a friend or service a ring. Deb seemed as though she was stuck. Walking a quarter of a mile with a baby in each arm was not a viable option. I put my head on the steering wheel while saying a short and panicky prayer. Deb said, as she recounted the events of the night. During this prayer, a stranger tapped on the car window. Deb described the man as clean-cut, a just 21 years old, well-dressed and smelling of soap. He prompted her to unroll the window and instructed her to put the car in neutral and steer, as he pushed the car up the hill. Following his directions, Deb got to the service station where she filled up her car and made it safely home. She couldn't see the man once they'd reached the top of the hill, but shouted a thank you nonetheless. Best of all, the little ones didn't miss a second of sleep throughout the ordeal. Thinking back, Deb mentioned how typically in a scenario like this, she'd expect to be nervous and afraid. She didn't feel any fear of any kind, but rather thankfulness and relief at the help of a stranger. Deb thinks of this man as an angel and believes she has met many more since then. Her belief is that when we encounter an angel, we do not question them. We simply trust their aid and that their intentions are good. She describes the possibility that angels can take all shapes and sizes, young and old. Deb concludes stating that, I've always trusted in God to take care of us, but in retelling that story many times to my children, who are now 30 and 32, they know for a fact that angels do exist and are sent to us if we just believe. The angel nurse. This is a story of a miracle told by the mother of an ill child. The message, she says, was sent to her by an angel. In 1998, Luke, an 8-year-old boy, was diagnosed with cancer of the bone. While his recovery was not linear, he made steady positive progress until he developed an infection. He stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks, struggling with the fight against his infection, with his mother staying at his bedside throughout. Whilst he slept, she prayed and spoke to the Lord. One night during her prayers, a nurse entered the room to run a routine temperature check. Luke's mother felt there was something indescribably odd about the nurse. Though one notable distinction between her and other nurses was her uniform, which was an outdated nurse's uniform when you'd expect to see in the 60s, 3 decades prior. The nurse made polite conversation, commenting on the Bible on Luke's bedside, saying she too was Christian and so would pray for Luke's healing. This religious sentiment, coupled with the lack of a modern uniform compared to the other staff, has led Luke's mom to draw the conclusion that this nurse was an angel. Luke was 19, cancer-free, and in good health. He retold this story, explaining how not long after the visit from the nurse, he came out of the hospital fully healed of the infection. The pair are both in agreement that the nurse was a guardian angel, sent to watch over and protect Luke, but also to provide his mother with hope and reassurance. Luke says he believes this is the only explanation as to the nurse's unusual attire. Officers hear a voice. On Saturday, March 8, 2015, officers heard a woman's voice softly calling for help, which, when the officers converged on this sound, led them to a car wreck with a deceased mother who had been driving and an infant alive in the back of the vehicle. The mysterious circumstances have left many claiming the bizarre event is a miracle, and many suggesting their mother called out, "Protect her daughter from beyond the grave." Lynn Grosbeck, 25 years old, was driving in Utah, USA, when she lost control of the car and crashed into the Spanish Fork River one Friday night. How the accident itself happened remains a mystery. Inspection of the car and the road suggest that there was no mechanical failures and that there were no skid marks on the road. The assumption is that Grosbeck hit a cement barrier, causing her to lose control of the car. Professionals do not believe that Grosbeck was under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time of the accident. The next day, 14 hours after the incident, fishermen saw the red Dodge sedan partially submerged in the river. The time of the accident was estimated to be 12:30 p.m. on the Friday, but the pair were found on Saturday, March 8th at 10:30 a.m. Lynn, mother to Lily, who was also in this accident, was declared deceased the night of the incident itself and couldn't possibly have been behind the mysterious woman's voice. The first responders on the scene were police officers Tyler Beddoes and Jared Warner, as well as firefighters Lee Meacham and Paul Tomadakis. The four officers all reported hearing a woman's voice crying for help. When they approached and flipped the car, they discovered Lynn, who had passed away. However, beside her alive was baby daughter Lily. The officers remained perplexed as to how this voice was heard, though after conferring with one another, the officers each confirmed having heard the soft but desperate voice of a woman calling for help and rescue. Spanish Fork Police Officer Tyler Beddoes offered his own comments saying, "It was there, it was real, we all heard it." Beddoes went on to imply that his own interpretation of this event was that the team had witnessed a miracle, a mother protecting and saving her infant daughter from beyond the grave. Beddoes also explains how despite his atheist beliefs, he conformed to the explanation of a miracle having occurred, even considering the possibility of a religious influence. Lynn's 18-month-old infant daughter, the sole survivor of this tragedy, was rushed to Primary Children's Hospital in a stable condition, though this itself was a huge success that had been considered unlikely. The child had spent 14 hours hung upside down in the car, with no food, no water, and just a flannel onesie for warmth. The near-freezing water filled the car through broken windows, passing awfully close to the child's head. Her grandfather made a comment regarding her recovery 2 days after the accident, explaining how she was singing, laughing, and smiling, and particularly enjoying herself. He stated that the family were blown away by Lily's progress and so grateful to her rescuers in an interview. They also expressed their distress at the loss of Lynn, confirming what a wonderful mother she had been to Lily. The recovery of the infant has also been dubbed by some as miraculous. Whether you entirely believe in miracles, be it religious, spiritual, or otherwise formed, or if you are cynical and believe entirely in circumstances and coincidences, the recovery and success stories shared here are wonderful, even if an angel or the universe were not responsible for their happenings. What do you make of these miracles shared today? Space is vast, and it's unlikely that it will ever unravel all of its secrets. Some scientists have even come forward and said that our universe is so complex that our brains are too small to understand it. Every year we discover new galaxies and exoplanets that give us an insight into how vast the universe is. It's not known if complex life forms exist in these solar bodies. After all, we only know life on this planet. And sometimes we have a habit of comparing our planet to others. Is anyone to guess as to what exists on these distant planets? With space comes questions, and one of the ones that always comes up is, are we alone in the universe? Are there other complex life forms out there? Or are there more advanced beings living in distant galaxies? The truth is we've not even explored a fraction of our universe to be in the position to give an answer. Simple math will tell you that where there's one, there's usually more. Take our solar system, for example. On various planets, scientists have said there's microbes, and these contain the building blocks for life. Just recently, Professor Jane Greaves of Cardiff University made the incredible discovery of phosphine gas, and this was made on the planet Venus. These exist in the clouds, and it's interesting to note that this is a molecule which is produced on our planet. We've just discovered huge amounts of water on the surface of the moon, with scientists and researchers making more and more discoveries every year. And all of this is happening within a tiny solar system that sits within the universe. It's for this reason that we can't rule out that there's other life forms somewhere out there. Back in 1974, we sent a very strong beam into space. The broadcast came from the Arecibo radio telescope, and the message was to let anything out there listening know that we are here. The message that was sent out was a simple one. It consisted of a pictorial message giving basic information about humans and the planet we live on. It was sent to the M13 cluster. This sits on the edge of the Milky Way galaxy. Scientists said this message was very powerful as it used Arecibo's megawatt transmitter. We would also be able to track the message anywhere in the galaxy. The SETI Institute said the following on their website. The message consists of 1,679 bits, arranged into 73 lines of 23 characters per line. These are both prime numbers and may help the aliens decode the message. The ones and zeros were transmitted by frequency shifting at the rate of 10 bits per second. The total broadcast was less than 3 minutes. A graphic showing the message is reproduced here. It consists, among other things, of the Arecibo telescope, our solar system, DNA, a stick figure of a human, and some of the biochemicals of earthly life. Although it's unlikely that this short inquiry will ever prompt a reply, the experiment was useful in getting us to think about the difficulties of communicating across space, time, and presumably wide culture gaps. According to UFO researchers, we did get a reply. Now, before I carry on, it's important to note that this image is a recreation, but it's a recreation of a message we received in a crop circle. The crop circle appeared in August 2001 in Chilbolton in Hampshire. And one of the things you'll notice is that, as many have pointed out, it looks very similar to the message we sent out. This has caused some to say that something did receive the message and they did reply, and their way of doing this was by leaving markings in a crop circle. As mentioned, the crop circle appeared in a field close to Chilbolton in Hampshire, which can be found in England. But something interesting to note is that this isn't just any ordinary field. The site where this was found had highly sensitive equipment, CCTV cameras monitoring the nearby areas, and high levels of security to ensure that no one was trespassing. This means it's very unlikely that someone would be able to sneak into the area and start making a crop circle. After all, those who have said they can create crop circles have explained that some of them can take several days, with some of the more complex ones taking several weeks. How then do you explain these complex designs appearing overnight? Researchers reached out and contacted officials who were at the site on the day this message appeared, and they said that although at this time the fields were uncovered, they did have people manning the fields, going on to say this happens 24 hours a day. No further cooperation was received by those who were working that night, and no more replies followed. This has caused some UFO researchers to believe they pretty much admitted that it would have been impossible for someone to sneak in and create these designs. As of right now, UFO researchers believe this message was a direct response to the one we sent out into the cosmos. Not everyone is entirely convinced, though. One skeptic said the following about the message. It's easy to see that this is not real and it's just someone messing around. They even copied the same markings as the one we originally sent out. This is fake. End quote. While a UFO researcher responded with this. Firstly, this isn't fake. The message was etched into land where there's a high amount of security. It's government-owned. And obviously, if something was to reply, they would use the same markings as the ones they received. Doing so, they would know that whatever was reading it would understand the writing style. They are not going to reply with completely different markings. That wouldn't make any sense. It's sad to see this crop circle has been looked over. The problem is a few people have managed to create some interesting designs, and now everyone thinks that all of them are just fake. It's a real shame, as I believe some of these messages are replies to things that we've sent out. And one of the ways they reply is by putting impressions in things like crop circles. End quote. As of right now, many amateur researchers believe this message is a response to the message we sent out and suggest we should be more open-minded, as this could have been something trying to reach out and contact us. So what do you make of this complex design? Do you think it was made by something advanced? Or do you think it was made by humans? And if you do, how do you think they got into restricted land and did the design without getting caught by security? Every year we make interesting discoveries, but sometimes these finds are made by accident. Going back a few days ago, the Utah Highway Patrol posted a photo to social media showing a mysterious metallic-looking object protruding from the ground. According to those who found the strange-looking object, the item was discovered in the middle of nowhere. Once the photographs were posted online, various people started to share their ideas on the theories for what it was, ranged from UFOs to ancient civilizations, to even someone playing a prank. The Utah Highway Patrol said the following about the discovery. Did you know we help with counting bighorn sheep every year? During the count, we came across this sheet of metal buried in the middle of nowhere. What do you think it is? End quote. One person said the following about the discovery. I don't know what this is, but if I were you, I'd wait until at least 2021, maybe 2022 for good measures before touching it. End quote. Well, another person said this, I'm guessing a Stanley Kubrick fan, but when it rains, I bet water jets out of tight slots in the canyon and hits the sheet of metal, makes some kind of sound. End quote. Well, this person said this, I think that this object works when something like sunlight hits it. Perhaps it was put there in order to tell the time or as a sort of calendar. Similar things have been discovered across our planet. One thing is that it does look new, so perhaps it was installed recently and it's only just been found. Whatever it is, it sure looks interesting. Hopefully there's an announcement soon. End quote. An amateur archaeologist shared their opinions on the discovery. This is incredible, and I'd like to see some close-up images of the object. I've seen a few people asking if it has any etchings on it, as this could help indicate what era this comes from. If I'm being honest, this does look like a very modern design, and is likely something that was placed here within the last few years. I find it interesting how such a large object could go undetected for so long. And I can see why so many people have shared and commented on this. I'm looking forward to more information being released about this. End quote. Skeptics have said they think it's just a metal sheet that's been placed in the ground, and this was likely done as a hoax. As of right now, people are waiting for more information to come out. It just goes to show there's still many discoveries just waiting to be discovered. Archaeological discoveries are perhaps some of the most interesting ones, as they give us an insight into our past. One of the most well-known discoveries made is that of the ancient Nazca lines. What's so interesting about these is although many are aware of them, many are unaware that every year we discover new glyphs, adding to the mystery of the area. The Nazca Plain in Peru is home to the Nazca lines, a collection of colossal etchings or geoglyphs into the desert area. They're completely shrouded in mystery with very little known, alluding to who or why these geoglyphs were created. It was only as recently as 2019 that the Yamagata University in Japan had announced a team working with them, and they had in fact discovered a massive 143 previously unknown geoglyphs on the Nazca Plain. If that wasn't enough, they also used an artificial intelligence program in order to decipher and recreate an existing Nazca line, making it the first to be identified by artificial intelligence. This discovery has been years in the making, with the team working on them studying them in different capacities for 15 years, from extensively analyzing the satellite images, and also more recently carrying out actual fieldwork on the lines. The artificial intelligence that was used to complete and identify the first Nazca line is a computer called Watson. Watson was given earlier identified Nazca lines to study, and then taught to identify them. However, this was quite difficult given the very limited amount of previously identified carvings. This extensive process actually paid off massively because Watson managed to discover a potential 500 more geoglyphs that were previously not known. This artificial intelligence will be a very useful tool in the pursuit of identifying and understanding all of these strange etchings. The etching that was fully identified by Watson is almost comical, because it's eerily similar to modern cartoon characters, or something very close. It has distinct features such as hair, standing on two legs, and even has a distinct item in its hands. The pursuit of understanding these famous glyphs has not been without its struggles. Many obstacles have threatened to destroy or damage the ancient carvings. An unexpected bout of heavy rainfall damaged part of a hanglyph. A driver had veered off a highway onto one of the glyphs, damaging it with tire marks. And there's continuous risk and danger of illegal mining and other illegal activities. The fascinating discoveries we've spoken about today really encompass how important it is to continue the pursuit of knowledge. It unearths so many amazing artifacts, missing knowledge and helping the understanding of Earth. Today's discoveries in particular show that there's many things we still don't understand, and that there's likely many more discoveries to be made in the near future. The Nazca Alliance are an incredible set of huge etchings, and the lines themselves are a testament to human innovation and creativity, and this is still relevant today. There are constantly new discoveries across the world. With the advancements made in science and technology in the last 25 years, it's given us the tools to decipher the secrets of the world much easier. These discoveries that have been made help us to fill in gaps throughout history or understand a certain subject more. What's most exciting about something being discovered is that they can completely change how we see and understand a topic. It seems though with this recent discovery we'll have to wait until more information is released. Regardless, it makes you wonder how many more artifacts are just waiting to be discovered. What you make of this interesting structure that was just discovered and what you think it is. Since the beginning of time, we've wandered the earth with a starry-eyed belief in what we couldn't see. The ghosts, demons, sirens, fairies and angels, stories of supernatural happenings have never failed to captivate us. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 spine-chilling mysteries that delve into the depths of the paranormal. Angel saves the dying daughter. It is difficult to believe things that are beyond our imagination. The word of mouth isn't the best evidence in our contemporary society, and even photographic proof is doubted, but every so often a video appears that takes the world by storm. In this case, a teenage girl by the name of Chelsea Banton, aged 15, had a fatal case of pneumonia, laying in a hospital bed as the life faded from her eyes. Her condition kept worsening until the doctors decided that the time had come to take her off life support. The moment that her loved ones surrounded her to say their farewells, the nurses in charge of security cameras began to panic. Ms. Banton, Chelsea's mother, rushed to see what was going on. The monitors revealed an astonishing white light that appeared to be an angel, which stood by Chelsea's hospital room. Chelsea's mother immediately prayed that this was an angel coming to save her daughter from her sickness or to deliver her to heaven if her time had come. Ms. Banton took a photograph of the monitor and within minutes a miracle happened. Chelsea, who was so close to passing away, was restored. Her health returned to her on swift wings. The family was convinced that this was a blessed act of God, that he sent an angel to protect Chelsea from passing away. However, it's challenging to determine whether this theory is accurate, or whether it can even be considered real at all. In the past, humans had a tendency to blindly believe whimsical things with little evidence, but we live in a society focused primarily on logic and science. Still, miracles happen every day, many of which cannot easily be explained by the reasoning science offers, because we still know far too little. The unknown will always exist, and the more answers we gather, the more questions we'll have. Did an angel save Chelsea Banton, or was it a mere coincidence? If it wasn't an angel, what else could it have been? How could she have suddenly got better after being so frail? Could this really have been something divine? The ghost sighting of Officer Carl Romero. In the north of New Mexico, a team of police officers found something blood-curdling on their surveillance tapes. They captured a mysterious phantom-like figure moving across a hallway on video. Officer Carl Romero was on surveillance duty the Saturday it happened. He claims that the alleged apparition was surely a ghost. The video shows a bright white figure walk across the screen during the night, though whatever or whoever this was is uncertain, for the image is blurry. Carl Romero explained that he quickly reported the sighting to higher up, but they didn't find anyone at the place the specter was spotted. Romero stated, "At first I thought it was a fly or moth. Then I saw the legs and the outline was a human, but not a real human. A ghost." According to the other police officers, there's no chance for anyone to get into the building without permission. The gates must be open to allow anyone access inside, and those gates are heavily guarded. Therefore, there is no logical explanation for someone breaking in, at least not without setting off the alarms. A detective that was involved with this strange case claims that he's uncertain whether this was an actual spirit or a criminal trying to break in. The detective has not dismissed the possibility of what Officer Carl Romero saw was an otherworldly entity. Not to mention that other officers have heard unusual sounds in the building's lobby in the past, partnered with sightings they couldn't explain or describe as anything logical. "I do believe in ghosts," Romero stated. Brian Bonner, a paranormal researcher and investigator, has his share of doubts. Brian Bonner works for the Rocky Mountain Paranormal Research Society. "That has to be one of the worst videos that I have seen," Bonner stated, proceeding to point out the flaws with the alleged ghost sighting video. The image appears to have been caused by a small insect crawling on the plastic case that houses the lens. The police, believing it to be something supernatural, spreads the narrative that this is an authentic ghost story. But just because the police believe it to be doesn't make it credible. Most people jump to the conclusion that if they cannot explain it, it has to be a ghost, when it is very easy to explain. The Black Nuns Abbey, hidden away in the green pastures of Ireland, is a small sanctuary, once meant to bring solace to those who entered its tall Gothic walls. Built in the Middle Ages, it was one of the first nunneries ever built in Ireland. St. Catherine's Augustinian Abbey, created in 1298. The land on which it once stood tall and proud was donated to the clergy by John Fitzthomas of Canello, who lived from 1195 to 1261 and was born at the nearby Chuneed Castle. What once was an architectural feat of the Gothic Middle Ages is now nothing but an abandoned, crumbling ruin hidden away from our modern sight. The abbey rests in a tiny, isolated valley about 2 miles from the village of Shana in Limerick. Once upon a time, the abbey had many wings, hallways, and sections. Now the only parts that remain remotely intact are the refectory, eastern cloister, crumbling chunks of the western wing, and the room known colloquially as the Black Hag's Cell. These are the last standing obelisks of a morbid history, being slowly reclaimed by nature. Traces of what once was suggested there was a kitchen near the stream, a lovely orchard that was once prosperous and abundant with life, and a pigeon house. The beauty this nunnery once undoubtedly possessed is long destroyed. The atmosphere around the abbey is terrifying. It is a place of darkness and sorrow which is emitted from every crevice of every stone that once made up this elusive place of worship. Ancient legends speak of the Black Hag who inhabits this place, a horribly hideous woman who practiced the dark craft of demonic witchcraft within the church. The nearby village feared her greatly and fears her still. Those who lived nearby were terrified of her presence, for she would curse and threaten those who dared try and oppose her. Rumors of black magic and her defiant, depraved lifestyle traveled through communities, securing her place as a folklore legend. The Black Hag, however, was a supposed member of a prestigious Fitzgerald family who resided at Chuneed Castle. The abbey is a burial site, as many abbeys are. This only increases the apparent haunting factor of this cursed place. Interest in this abbey developed during the 18th and 19th centuries, with the rise in demand for the mysterious and macabre, beloved by the Victorians. Legends of this dark place survive to this day, immortalizing the ruins, which will soon entirely fall apart. One myth explains the origin of the Black Hag. Before the nunnery was dissolved, there was a certain cold-hearted abbess who reached out to Satan, giving herself to him and becoming one of his witches. She practiced the dark arts in the church, damning the entire abbey out of selfish desire and evil intentions, causing the Pope himself to excommunicate and dissolve the nunnery. This story, unfortunately, was most likely created as propaganda to justify the dissolution of the abbey. Some scholars suggest that what happened was that a single nun remained in the abbey, and that they called her Black Hag. A secondary myth speaks out of the Earl of Desmond and his beloved Countess. The Earl had a dreadful disagreement with one of his butlers, and as they were trying to leave the nunnery, the Countess was shot in the heart by a stray arrow, bringing her down. The Earl believed his wife to be lifeless and in a frenzy buried her underneath the church altar, abandoning the corpse of his wife. As it turned out, the Countess had survived only to find herself buried alive, screeching wildly for help and salvation that never arrived. Her screams are still said to carry through the haunted ruins of the abbey. The unknown terrifies us, and for centuries we have tried to explain what cannot be explained. We are not omnipresent nor omniscient. We can't understand what our minds cannot comprehend. The war between science and spirituality is one that will continue for decades to come. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in the middle. But what do you make of these mysteries involving the paranormal? UFOs have fascinated us for years, and it seems that more and more people are becoming interested in the topic. Strange, unidentified crafts have been witnessed in our skies for decades. There's even some that have said that these crafts have been witnessed by humans for hundreds of years, saying that old accounts and scriptures can be found that detail mysterious crafts in our sky, pointing to something not of this earth, as we didn't have the technology during that time. As the years have gone on though, it's only revealed more information surrounding this topic. For example, we've learned that government officials have shown a strong interest in these crafts as multiple secret programs have run over the years looking into what these objects are and if they're a threat to our security. This has caused some to suggest that this phenomena is very much real. After all, why would secret projects be running if there was no substance to these claims? One interesting thing about unidentified flying objects is that they seem far more advanced than us, with pilots and other high-ranking officials saying that our current tech cannot keep up with them. This has been shown time and time again on video when these objects seem to defy the laws of physics, being able to outmaneuver our modern crafts with ease. Another thing that's been noted in recent years is that these crafts seem to have an interest in our missiles, and also other highly sensitive areas not accessible by the general public. These unidentified crafts seem to be able to make their way into secure airspace without being detected and then suddenly disappear before military planes can get in and investigate. In fact, this was one of the reasons why a program was created, and this program went by the name of the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program. The research group was quickly given $22 million in support in a team of military intelligence officials, researchers at the highest level of security clearance. The Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program was given the primary objective of identifying these unidentified flying objects and to find out whether or not they are potential threats to national security. It did not take long for the team to gather a wide variety of strange sighting reports made by pilots from various locations, including associated data like camera footage and radar information, while attempting to match these sightings with known international aircraft signatures. Expecting to find explanations to these crafts and their origin after the gathered data was compiled, it became rather obvious that this would not be the case. In fact, many of the researchers involved in the program regarded these UFO sightings and crafts as having no earthly origin and displaying behavior that could not be explained. This could for a while be the closest the Department of Defense will ever come to admitting the viability of extraterrestrial crafts without directly admitting it. As mentioned, these crafts have been seen close to things like missiles, and back in 1964, former U.S. Air Force employee Robert Jacobs was in charge of photo instruments. His mission was to film an Atlas rocket during his find. When he heard liftoff, he started the cameras. He said he could see all 3 stages of the rocket, thinking that everything was going fine. He then took the cancer film to get them developed. He was then ordered to go into the office of one of the majors. There he was told to sit down and listen carefully to what they were about to say. He turned on the film projector and showed him the launch. As the Atlas missile entered the frame, he was told it was traveling at 11 to 14,000 miles per hour. However, the cameras then picked up a saucer-shaped craft that came into view. Robert Jacobs said the following about the incident. It flew into the frame and shot a beam of light at the warhead. Remember, all this stuff is flying at several thousand miles per hour. This thing fires a beam of light at the warhead, hits it, fires another beam of light, and then flies out the way it came in. The warhead then tumbles out of space. When the lights came on, Major Management said, "Were you guys messing around up there?" And I said no. He asked what was that, and I said, "I think we have a UFO." End quote. Letters were then gathered by hyper officials that said the following. In the film, the assumption was at that time extraterrestrial. Details would be sketchy and from memory. The shape was a classic disc. The center seemed to be a raised bubble. After the video was shown to Robert Jacobs, high officials told him to never speak of this again. Robert Jacobs then went on live television to detail what he'd seen and was open about the fact that these crafts are extremely advanced. With all this acknowledgement of unidentified crafts, their strange abilities and the potential for extraterrestrial life, it might appear that the Department of Defense and higher intelligence officials might be slowly coming to the consensus of total disclosure regarding the viability of alien contact in classified government projects. However, that could not be further from the case. He claims that the footage shown and provided was never officially declassified, and that there are potentially many more files that are yet to be declassified that have not yet gone through the proper channels. In fact, it almost appears to be the initial cause for the declassification of certain files to begin with was due to a potential leak, and this originated from inside the Pentagon. As Nate Jones clarifies the following, it looks very strongly like these weren't released through any proper DoD declassification channels when referring to the shown footage in declassified reports. The Department of Defense has also taken a stand by saying the following. The official who is authorized to release this video on behalf of the Department of Defense did not approve the release of this video. The Pentagon is also referencing a study made back in the 1950s by the Central Intelligence Agency's Psychological Bond, of which concluded that the public's potential reaction to UFOs could cause an instance of mass hysteria, which constituted a national security threat. So what do you make of the UFO that shot a beam of light at this projectile? And what do you make of the official's comments about being silent about the encounter? The city lost to the sea has been the center of countless stories, tales and theories for hundreds of years. Could there be an ancient city at the bottom of the ocean? Or is Atlantis just as mythical as the average unicorn? So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 interesting theories surrounding Atlantis. British company finds Atlantis in Spain. The most damning evidence against the existence of Atlantis is the clear lack of physical remnants of the so-called city. Surely if such a powerful island nation were to exist, then records, pieces, or artifacts from such a place would still be around somewhere, just waiting to be found. In November 2018, a British company claimed to have done just that. A British satellite firm named Merlin Burrows stated in 2018 that they had discovered images that could show remnants of the long-lost city written by Plato around 2,400 years ago. Merlin Burrows points towards supposed ruins that lie in Don Lana National Park in Spain. According to their claims, there is evidence of concrete which could be between 10,000 and 12,000 years old. The city of Atlantis has garnered a reputation of being in control of advanced alien technology, which was supposedly lost to time and to the ocean. Because of this, efforts to find the supposedly lost city have grown in frequency, with many people across the globe trying to find its location. Bruce Blackburn, a representative from Merlin Burrows, stated, "We've got a body of evidence that we've presented, and we have a whole host of proof points. And we are quite happy for people to take a viewpoint." Continuing on, Blackburn said, "We've released this information, we've got some films, and we accept that there will be people who think it isn't true." Merlin Burrows decided on their spot by using satellite data alongside descriptions of Atlantis given to us by Plato. The location pinpointed by the firm is claimed to match those descriptions laid out by Plato and is reinforced by the presence of what they describe as concrete. Being 10,000 years old, the site does match the time frame of Atlantis' supposed existence given by Plato. Furthermore, Merlin Burrows asserts that they discovered what appears to be ruins of ancient towers and a temple, again supposedly matching descriptions penned by Plato and other ancient texts. While the discovery sounds exciting, some scientists don't believe it. Of course, the finding is still exciting to some. Perhaps the discovery is man-made after all, and points to an archaeological discovery that has gone unnoticed. Or perhaps we're looking for something that just isn't there. What did Plato say about Atlantis? As we mentioned in the section before, the first person to write about Atlantis was actually the famous philosopher Plato. Known for his massively influential philosophical teachings, most famously his cave allegory, Plato shaped thousands of years of Western philosophy and countless historical figures after he passed away. But many do not realize that he is the author of, or at least the first author to mention, Atlantis. The reason behind Plato's Atlantis was used as a way to explain his philosophical beliefs through a pseudo-historical retelling of history. Atlantis was supposed to show the resilience of Athens against an aggressor and was supposed to be a parable of what Plato believed to be the ideal state. In his story, Plato details that Athens defends itself from Atlantis in an amazing display. Decimated Atlantis before the island is disregarded by the Grecian deities and sinks into the ocean. Atlantis, as described by Plato around 360 BC, was an incredible advanced island civilization. Those who first founded the land were demigods, half god and half human. The island nation was considered a utopia and had an unprecedented amount of maritime power. The island nation was told to have been made up of multiple islands that were split by moats, and that were linked together by a canal that stretched to the center of Atlantis. The islands were described as beautiful and full of natural resources. Supposedly, Atlantis was full of rare metals like gold and silver, exotic elephants, and even orichalcum, which is an unknown resource of mythical quality. The city we associated with Atlantis was the capital and was formed on the central island. The central island held mountains in its northwest region, with 3 variations of rock-colored red, black, and white. The land was rich and fertile with many farms and croplands growing abundant fruit, vegetables, and herbs. It is important to say that Plato did not intend for Atlantis to become such a well-known representation of lost civilizations. Atlantis is relatively unimportant. This has not stopped the city becoming a piece of popular culture. In fact, in modern times, Atlantis has an influence on countless video games, movies, comics, and books. What do modern-day scientists say about Atlantis? Scientists, understandably, are a little tired of Atlantis discoveries. The fur mentioned in the first section of this video are not the first to claim they have found the ancient city, and they certainly will not be the last. Researchers are quick to point out that so-called Atlantean ruins most likely belong to other ancient cultures and are incorrectly being passed off as being from Atlantis. In fact, this occurrence happens so often that scientists have begun to collectively sigh at the sight of another apparent Atlantis discovery. So far, people have claimed to find Atlantis in Bolivia, the Caribbean, Turkey, Germany, Malta, Turkey, and even Antarctica. The existence of Atlantis is not considered to be factual by most researchers. In Plato's original descriptions of the city in 360 BC, he mentioned that he had basically heard of the ancient civilization through passed-down information. Plato used the downfall of a once great civilization as a way to explain his thoughts on corruption. While Atlantis was a mighty and prosperous place, they eventually drove themselves into oblivion by the hand of the gods. Scholars have always seen the Atlantis story as just a story. Yet, the narrative suddenly switched when in 1882 the book Atlantis, the Antediluvian World was published. Written by amateur scientist Ignatius Donnelly, the book claimed that Atlantis was not in fact a parable, but a real historical location. After Donnelly's book was published, the idea of Atlantis slowly grew into the public consciousness. Eventually, an idea of Atlantis totally separate from that of Plato's began to take hold, leading people to search for a city that most likely never existed. Still, many have followed descriptions left by Plato in order to find Atlantis' geographical location. As Plato writes, in front of the mouth, which you Greeks call the Pillars of Hercules, there lay an island which was larger than Libya and Asia together. This has led many explorers across the globe piecing together clues as a kind of interestingly, the Merlin Burrows discovery is one of many that claims Atlantis is located in the southern region of Spain. National Geographic produced a documentary named Atlantis Rising, supposedly showing evidence that the city was in Don Lana National Park. A 2004 study in the journal Antiquity also made the same claim. Additionally, the director of the Anglo-Spanish American School of Archaeology, Elena Maria Atlantis in Andalusia in 1929, which theorized that the region was a colony of Atlantis. Scientists believe that this area is a hotbed for claims because ancient humans lived in the region thousands of years ago. In a December issue of the Journal of Archaeological Science, it reports a study indicated that in what is now the Don Llana National Park, humans were living in the area around 5,000 years ago. Even if the claims made by different groups were true, The dating of the Atlantean civilization does not match with any of our understanding of our evolution or growth to human civilization. From that, we can assume that claims of Atlantis are fake, and that humans around 10,000 years ago were much more similar to our idea of cavemen than an advanced set of superhumans. But what do you make of these interesting discoveries surrounding Atlantis?